welcome to Should I Buy This Game featuring Arborea. My name is Christine, and in this video I'll give you a brief description on how the game is played and then share a few things I may like or dislike about the game to help you decide if you want to add Arborea to your collection. Welcome to the world of Arborea, where a cataclysmic event destroyed most of its former fertile lands and scared all the creatures living on them. You are a patron saint, guiding your villagers to heal and regrow the landscape around them by sending them on pilgrimages to build your personal ecosystem. So Arborea is a game that looks very confusing, but is actually very simple to play once you understand the different parts of the board. So I'm going to start by going over all the parts, starting up here at the corner. And this is where our little animals or sages are. And you can see they're all listed here that when we invite an animal in, what we're going to do is by putting them on this first spot. Now, the very first time you invite an animal, there's these little bonuses. So this is like you can have a rested character added into service. You get to move up on the regeneration board. You get some bonus resources, add to your spirit, get a new card, and add a little token to get a gift from one of the sages. Now, once this is gone though, then when you add in a new one, you now get the 3 spirit and 3 points. And if another one gets added in, you get the lower values. So that is the little animals here. We'll come back and talk about them a bit later. But we're going to move to the sun board because this is what depends how long your game is. Each time you introduce an animal, you'll see this little arrow here. You move your sun by 1 spot. That's the only time that the board moves ahead to the end of the game, is when an animal is introduced. Once you get to the last spot, there's 2 suns, and this means you get 2 extra turns before the game is over, so you can complete what you were doing before you finish the game. So we'll move over here to the biomes. So we have a trail, and on each side of the trail, there's 2 different paths and 2 different biomes, and they all give you different advantages. So up here is where you're going to be able to take these animals into your own personal biome area. So that's the only place where you can get the animals. Down below is the only place where you can invite your tired workers into working. So if you need more workers to be using at one time, this is how you get it. When we move to this biome, up here is how we get more of the cards that we want to use in the game. And then on this side is the only place where you can get the water. And it costs you a lot of spirit to get the water. So water is a hot commodity. When we go down to this trail, this is where we get the coral. And then some down here is where you get the seaweed. You're also able to, this is how you introduce the animals. So here you'll be introducing this animal, you'll bring them down and get the points like I showed you at the top of the game. So you're not collecting that animal, you're introducing the animal into the game. Then on this side is the little mushrooms, as well as you're introducing these animals. And here again, it's that, and then your last little resource here. So then we go down to the resource board, and this is really unique because what happens is if I took a path that gave me 3 of this resource, I would move it up 3. But maybe to cash in a card, I only need 1. So I would move it down and I have a difference of 2. So now instead of that resource, like I keep these are like shared, I would get 6 points. This would move up, and now there'd be 2 of that resource that other players can use. So you receive points for collecting it. But if you don't want to cash it in, then somebody else can use that resource. And so it's a really unique way of how the resources work. And here we have the regeneration. So there was a tile that gave us a point for this. We would move it up. And then depending where it is, you would score at the end of the game based on these little bonus tiles that were placed here. So if you were up here, you would get 3 times based on whatever how many animals you had on your cards. This just tells you how the game is played. And then we have the tracker down here, and every time you go around, you can move it up. I don't know if anybody's gotten to 300, I haven't, but that just keeps track of how many times around the board you went. And that's the layout of the board. This is the player board, so I just want to go over what you have. So these cubes are used to add gifts to the different stages. And then you have your big players, and those are the elders. And they're strong and big, and they can work and work and work without resting. Here you have the young villagers, and they need a rest after every time they work. And here we have the veterans, who also need a rest after every time they work. Now, when you're playing a two-player game, you start with your two elders and one veteran, and in a 3 or 4, instead of the veteran, you have a young player that you start with. So after you use the player, it'll come here to being tired, and on the board where I showed you where you can get your workers back, that's how you get them back from the rest. However, the big elders, they're always available to you to work. Now, the benefit of the veterans, though, is that they want to get things done, and so they will move 2 spots at a time, whereas all the rest only move 1 spot at a time. And we'll be talking about that briefly when I talk about the trails. You also have a starting ecosystem card. This is, you're going to be building up your ecosystem. And then you have your first card that you're getting. So when it comes to the resources, you would need 2 of the pink and a purple mushroom. Once you have that, then the bonus here is you can actually get a veteran player. You can bring them out of their sleep, and you get 1 spirit on the spirit trail, which I will show you. I forgot to show you that. Once you do that, you turn it over. So whatever is shown here, so 2 pink and a purple, when you turn it over, you're going to have 2 pink and a purple on this side. And you're going to be putting these together to form little biomes like that. And then when you're able, you would get your little pink creature and put them in the middle for optimum points. That's your goal. You're going for making little sets of 4 and setting your little animals. Later on, I'll build up a bit more to show you how you would ideally like your animals to come. So that is what we are creating here with our ecosystem cards. So this here is that spirit track. And to do some things, you need to spend spirit, which you would move it down. But then a lot of times you will gain spirit as well. So this will be constantly moving back and forth throughout the game. You can't spend more than 8 spirit. And once you have a positive 8, you won't gain any more. You'll just stay there. And it doesn't matter where you are until the very end of the game, that's when you would get points. If you're down here, you lose points. If you're up here, you gain points. But don't be afraid to use your spirit, because there's a lot of places to gain it back. So you can just keep moving back and forth throughout the game to get those benefits that they'll give you. And then we also have the ecosystem cards. And depending, as I mentioned, how many images are on the bottom will depend. So this one has a 6, and so the whole card will be full, helping you out. Whereas up here, where you're collecting 4 resources, there'll be 2 blank spots. And so you'll be deciding, do you go for the easier cards, or do you want to go for the harder card to get more resources? And whatever is shown on the front is the resource with the biomes on, the ecosystems on the back. So that is this part. Now I'm going to show you how you play the game. So this was our first ecosystem card, and we are looking for 3 coral. So during setup, I was allowed to put a player onto one of the pilgrimage trails and move it ahead 1 spot. And so of course I chose the place where I could get the coral. Now on your first turn, you can either take another one of your players and put it on a trail somewhere, or you can move your path ahead. So because I'm really focused on that coral, I'm going to move my path. or my trail. And because he is the veteran, he gets to move 2 spots like that. Now, the next thing would be for him to go along the path. But if he goes the path right now, he would only get 2 coral, and we want 3 coral. So this is where our spirit comes in. We can spend 2 spirit to do the motion again. So I move it from 0 to 2, and now I get to move him 2 more times along the trail. When your trail comes off like that, you just put it back to the beginning. There we go. So the second movement is I can have 2 of my people go along a path. I only have 1 guy right now, so he's going to go along this path. So the first thing he comes across is he can introduce this animal. So as we come up here to our animals, we would take the guy, and because it has the little bonus here, what that allows me to do is to put one of my little purple cubes on this person's gift, which is over on this side here. So what I would do is I'm on 1. So if I take this path later, I'd be able to get a bonus gift when I visit there. So now back to where we were here. As he moves along, he gets 1, 2, 3 coral. So we go to our resources, which is down here in the corner, and we have our coral. So we're going to move it 1, 2, 3. And we'll leave it like that for now. So when we come back here, we could get a gift if we had a cube here, but we do not have a cube, so we don't get a gift. And now we can introduce one of our tired workers into our work area. So that's over on our play mat. I'll just take this guy, and instead of making him tired, I'm just going to put him back on my play mat into the area where they can work. He doesn't have to be tired. He will go right back to work. And that is the first step of our move. The number 3 now would be, we can activate this. So we have our card, and it wants 3 coral. So we go back to our resources, and again, I have 3, so I would move this back down 1, 2, 3, because I want to use all of it. Then now I get to put another cube on the purple area. That's just where we came from. So I'm offering a gift there. So the next time I take that route, I can actually get the gift. And I get one of my spirit back. So I turn that over like that. And then I can add this into my biome. I'll move my biome up with what I had started setting up. And I can decide, I can like overlap, decide how I want to set it up. That might be most beneficial. I can't tuck it under though, it has to be on top, but maybe I'll put it there hoping to get more coral later for the animal. Then I would go back to the resource, see if I got any points, but because I used all that coral, I don't get points. And I don't have any players out. If I did, I would move them ahead 1 on the track. Now I'm just using 1 player to show you, but typically there'd be more players out. I wouldn't move the other player tracks, only the tracks where my player is. And that is basically 1 turn of the game. So I just want to show you that this is an example of how you might be trying to build your ecosystems. Ideally, you're trying to get 4 of a type with the animal in between by layering the cards you get. However, if you only have 1 of something in the animal that coordinates, it's still worth putting it there because you will still gain some points at the end of the game. And each animal scores a little differently. You would just have to check your card and tells you how each animal scores. But you're ideally trying to get 4 and an animal in the middle that coordinates with the same colors. And now a few things I really like about the game, and the first one is the track system. I like how you can decide what resources you need to help you decide how far along the track you want to go. So if I only needed flowers, I could get off at this spot and collect my flowers and move on. Whereas if I was really after those mushrooms, I'd have to move right down here and then collect the mushrooms. Or maybe I was after getting a certain creature up into the track that I want to collect later. I could get off to get the creature. So it really gives you the opportunity to choose what you need out of the track and how far along to go. And then next is the spirit track. I like the option of having that you can spend spirit, but there's so many places where you're going to gain it back that you don't have to be fearful of like just losing the spirit. A lot of times you'll gain it back and you'll hover back and forth. And so it allows you to do like those extra turns without having to wait until your next turn around. And then the third thing I want to mention, I really like this idea of this shared resources. So say you had players, yourself or other players, have gone through and gained resources along the way but didn't spend them. And then you end up with this card here, and you need 2 of the pink, and there's 2 there. You would push that down. You need 2 flowers. There's 4 flowers, so you only push it to 2. You need 1 purple, but there's no purple. Well, water is a wild card, and even though you need water resource for some cards, you can use it. If there is none, you can use it in place of. So I would use 1 water for the purple, and then the seaweed, I need 1. So I can push it down. And just by going here to the resource board, I was able to complete this card and then collect my bonuses. Now, if you were the person who originally collected it, you could say, I collected 2 more of this. Well, each thing you pass by, you get points along the track, because it's like 2 points, 4 points, because you didn't spend it, you just collected it. So you gain points. So the idea of sharing the resources, getting points for collecting them, or having to use them without having to go on, like in this case, it would be 4 separate tracks to get it all. It just makes it a very interesting concept that I hadn't seen in other games. Now, there's not much I really dislike about the game. However, I found when I was learning the game, I was very confused. And after about 40 minutes, I realized that the game was very easy to play. So I think because it looks so confusing with all this stuff going on, I expected it to be more complicated than it was. So that could be a me problem. But just so you know, it's a very simple game to play, and don't try to overcomplicate it. And then the other thing I'm still trying to figure out is the workers. We have all these workers, and the 2 are constantly in play. And I find every time I want to do the move, I'd rather move my track than add more workers. And so I'm still trying to figure out the best way to benefit having so many workers, because I really only use 2, maybe 3 at a time. But overall, I love the game. I love the theme and the things I had mentioned earlier. It's really great. And so let me know if you've played Arborea and what you think of the game.